They say humiliation cuts deeper than any physical pain. Mine came wrapped in silk, champagne, and delivered by a woman who thought she knew exactly who I was. I sat quietly at a small corner table, gently twisting the simple pearl necklace around my neck, one of the few treasured possessions I had left. At 68, retired after 35 years of teaching high school literature, my modest pension barely kept my small, aging house on the outskirts of Boston. It wasn't much, but it was home, filled with the memories of my husband Tom, who had passed away just 2 years ago, and our only son Michael. Michael had always been my pride and joy, a bright and charming boy who grew into a hard-working young man. He found success in marketing, but he'd always struggled quietly with his humble roots, wishing deep down for acceptance into a world he wasn't born into. When he first told me about Ashley Monroe, I saw the excitement and the anxiety in his eyes. "She's incredible, Mom," he'd said, a nervous smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "The Monroes own Monroe Properties, that huge real estate company downtown. They're pretty wealthy." I nodded slowly, feeling a pang of worry, but I pushed it aside, smiling warmly for his sake. As long as she makes you happy, that's what matters most. The first time Ashley visited my modest home, her polite but indifferent gaze told me everything I needed to know. Her perfectly manicured fingers touched my old wooden table with faint disdain, and her elegant silk blouse shimmered, starkly out of place amid my faded floral curtains and worn carpets. "What a charming place," she remarked casually, her tone dripping with a subtle judgment that she made little effort to hide. Now, sitting in the glittering ballroom of the Grand Palace Hotel, chandeliers twinkling overhead, I felt more out of place than ever. Ashley stood radiant beside my son, resplendent in a gown that cost more than my yearly pension. Michael smiled proudly, unaware of the discomfort hidden behind my strained expression. Then came the final toast. Ashley raised her glass of champagne, sparkling diamonds on her wrist catching the chandelier's glow. "Before we close," she announced, her voice carrying clearly across the luxurious room, "I'd like to thank someone very special tonight, my dear mother-in-law, Linda Evans." I felt my heartbeat quicken. Maybe, just maybe, I had misjudged her. "Linda," Ashley continued, smiling sweetly, "I just want to thank you personally, in front of everyone here, for your generous financial support of this wedding. It's amazing how quickly you appeared with medical bills and unexpected expenses once our family became involved. Truly, we couldn't have done it without you." Silence filled the ballroom. 200 pairs of eyes swiveled toward me, some shocked, others sympathetic, many filled with undisguised curiosity. Michael's face went pale, but he said nothing, his silence more painful than Ashley's words. My hands shook, and I carefully placed my untouched champagne glass on the silk-covered table. With dignity, fighting back tears, I slowly stood up, ignoring the whispers that followed me. My knees trembled, not just from age, but from humiliation as I made the long, excruciating walk across the polished marble floor. Outside, alone in the cool night air, I allowed myself a single quiet sob before straightening my spine and summoning a taxi. The ride back home was silent, my mind flooded with bitterness and pain. Michael didn't know about the heirlooms I had sold, the insurance I had canceled, or the quiet sacrifices I had made just to meet the demands of Ashley's expensive taste. Entering my darkened house, I whispered quietly into the stillness. They thought they knew me, but they had no idea who I really was. Sitting down heavily at my kitchen table, I gently held a faded photograph of Tom, feeling his comforting presence even now. Somehow, despite the ache in my heart, I felt a quiet strength rising, something fierce and determined. Before you go, if you relate to my story, please like, share, and comment where you're watching from. Your voice matters. The evening Michael called to tell me about his engagement, I had just brewed my tea, savoring the quiet peace of my small kitchen. The phone rang, and I smiled at his familiar number lighting up the screen. "Mom," he said, his voice filled with excitement. "Ashley said yes, we're officially engaged." I felt a rush of joy tempered by a faint unease. "That's wonderful news, Michael. I'm so happy for you both." "Thanks, Mom," he continued, his voice shifting subtly. "Listen, I know you've met Ashley, but I just need you to understand. Her family has certain expectations." I felt the uneasy flutter in my chest again. "Expectations? They expect us to pay half the wedding costs, It's their tradition. Ashley says it's about $90,000 total, so our share is $45,000. The figure struck me like a physical blow. My pension was modest, barely enough to cover necessities. $45,000 was beyond anything I'd imagined. Michael, that's an awful lot of money. Can't you and Ashley speak honestly with her parents about your financial situation? He sighed, frustration evident. Mom, they already think I'm some kind of gold digger, marrying into their family for money. If I don't contribute half, they'll never respect me. You don't understand their world. I swallowed hard, understanding more clearly than he realized. My son was trapped between love and pride, caught in a social class that had never fully accepted him. I'll figure it out, Michael. Don't worry. The days that followed became a quiet, painful unraveling of the life Tom and I had built together. I began by carefully taking inventory of the heirlooms we'd lovingly collected over our 38 years of marriage. The antique dining set we bought on our 10th anniversary, Tom's precious collection of rare books, even my grandmother's delicate porcelain dishes, all sold off piece by piece, each transaction punctuated with a private, mournful goodbye. One evening, I carefully wrapped Tom's gold pocket watch, the one his father had given him decades ago, and handed it silently to the antique dealer. The man barely glanced at me as he counted out crisp bills, his indifference deepening my quiet anguish. To raise more funds, I canceled my supplemental health insurance, something I'd relied on heavily due to worsening knee pain and the early warning signs from my cardiologist. As I signed the cancellation form, my fingers trembled slightly, knowing I was gambling with my health, but this was Michael's chance at happiness, at acceptance, and I was determined not to let my aging body or pride hold him back. Ashley began visiting my modest home regularly to discuss wedding plans, each time her critical gaze scanning my humble surroundings with barely concealed disdain. She never openly insulted me, but subtle remarks cut deeply, revealing her true perception. "It must be tough living alone now, Linda," she said sweetly one afternoon, casually stirring the tea I'd made her, "especially with just a teacher's pension." I forced a polite smile. "I manage. Teaching gave me a life rich with other rewards." She raised one perfectly groomed eyebrow. "I suppose some people are content with simpler things." As her words lingered in the air, my heart tightened, sensing clearly what she saw, a financially irresponsible woman, someone incapable of managing her modest means. Yet I bit my tongue, determined not to create tension that could hurt Michael. My health continued to decline quietly. Each step became increasingly painful, my knee aching incessantly. Occasionally, sharp chest pain seized me, leaving me momentarily breathless, forced to sit quietly until the sensation passed. I concealed every symptom, unwilling to burden my son. He was already juggling too much. Yet, despite my sacrifices, Ashley's thinly veiled contempt only deepened. Her tone implied I was an inconvenience, a burden her family must endure because of Michael. And Michael himself, overwhelmed by the pressures of his new life, seemed unaware of my silent struggles. I felt invisible, slowly fading into the background of their glamorous future. Lying awake one night, knee throbbing and chest heavy with grief, the bitter truth crystallized painfully in my mind. It wasn't Ashley's disdain that hurt most deeply. It was Michael's inability to see clearly what I'd given up for him. "I wasn't angry at first," I whispered softly into the darkness, tears slipping silently down my cheeks. "Just deeply heartbroken that my only child couldn't see the truth behind my quiet sacrifices." The days after the wedding blurred into a haze of exhaustion and quiet pain. My body betrayed me when I least expected it. One sweltering afternoon, a crushing pressure gripped my chest, stealing my breath. I barely managed to call 911 before collapsing on the kitchen floor. At the hospital, the doctors confirmed what I feared, a heart attack, serious but not massive. The procedure to clear the blockage was urgent and costly. When the bill arrived, the staggering number made my heart sink again, over $12,000, and none of it covered by my canceled supplemental insurance. I reached out to Michael, hoping for help. His hesitation was palpable, and Ashley's cold distance felt like a blade through my chest. "We're committed to the wedding expenses," Michael said quietly. "But this is different. Ashley thinks it's irresponsible of you to have canceled your insurance." Their refusal stung far more than the physical pain I endured. It was a betrayal wrapped in concern, a subtle accusation that I was careless, a burden to be managed. I was alone, struggling to breathe and grappling with the humiliating reality of my financial fragility. In that darkest moment, as I lay in the sterile hospital room, my hand brushed against an envelope tucked away in the corner of my bedside drawer, a letter I hadn't seen in years. It was from Tom. His handwriting was familiar and steady. Inside, he revealed a secret I had never known. 15 years ago, he had quietly invested $75,000 in a promising technology startup called Future Home Solutions. He'd kept it hidden, wanting to shield me from financial risks. Now the company had blossomed into a major player in property technology, transforming the industry and directly competing against the real estate empire Ashley's family controlled. The letter was clear. These shares were meant to provide security for my future, a hidden legacy to protect me when I needed it most. The discovery sparked a flicker of hope in my weary heart. With the help of a trusted attorney, I verified my ownership and accessed dividends that had quietly been accumulating. I became a significant shareholder, wielding a power I had never imagined possible. News of my stake in Future Home Solutions traveled fast, reaching Ashley's family. They wasted no time in inviting me to a high-stakes meeting, their tone polite but their intent unmistakable. They wanted to buy my shares and silence me. Sitting across the polished mahogany table from Caroline Monroe, Ashley's older sister and a formidable executive, I met their offer with calm dignity. "These shares represent more than money," I said steadily. "They're Tom's legacy, our family's future. I am not selling." Caroline's eyes narrowed slightly, but I held her gaze unwavering. The room fell silent, the weight of my refusal hanging in the air. Michael looked on, stunned, perhaps seeing me for the first time as more than just a retired teacher, but a woman who had quietly reclaimed her strength. That day, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, not anger, not bitterness, nor vengeance, but something far more powerful. True dignity. It was a turning point, a moment of reclaiming myself after years of silent sacrifice and pain. I had been humbled, yes, but never defeated. Ashley and Michael's attitudes began to shift. The cold distance softened, replaced by a cautious respect. The woman who once publicly humiliated me now had to reckon with the truth. I was far more than they had ever given me credit for, and I was just getting started. Weeks after the meeting with Ashley's family, I invited Michael and Ashley to my new apartment, a modest, sunlit space that symbolized my fresh start. The air was calm but heavy with unspoken truths as we sat around the worn oak kitchen table. It was time to lay everything bare. "I want you both to understand," I began, my voice steady but filled with emotion, "what I sacrificed quietly for your wedding, for Michael's happiness. I sold nearly everything Tom and I treasured, our heirlooms, my supplemental insurance, even my health, so that Michael could walk into that ceremony without shame or doubt." Michael's eyes widened, his usual confident demeanor faltering. Ashley looked down, her expression shifting from defensiveness to something softer, remorse perhaps. "I never told you," I continued, "because I wanted to protect you, but I'm tired of being invisible, of being seen as a burden when all I ever wanted was to give." Michael reached across the table, his voice thick with regret. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I was blind to everything you were going through. I didn't realize how much you sacrificed, how much you endured silently. I failed you, and I'm sorry." Ashley nodded slowly, her eyes glistening. "Linda, your strength humbles me. I've been selfish and harsh, caught up in my family's expectations. You've shown me what true courage and grace look like." In the months that followed, Ashley began volunteering at the hospital where I'd been treated after my heart attack. The experience transformed her. She applied to nursing school, determined to build a life rooted in compassion rather than status. Her change was a quiet but powerful testament to the impact of forgiveness and understanding. As for me, I decided to use the fortune Tom left me for more than just security. I established the Evans Foundation, a charitable fund dedicated to retired teachers struggling with health issues and financial hardships. It felt like a way to honor Tom's memory and my own journey, to give back to those who had given so much. Sitting quietly one evening, I reflected on everything, the heartbreak, the humiliation, and the unexpected blessings. I whispered to the photograph of Tom on my mantelpiece, "I learned the greatest fortune isn't measured by money, but by dignity, forgiveness, and the courage to reclaim your worth no matter your age." The final scene came one warm Sunday afternoon. Michael, Ashley, and I gathered for a simple dinner in my apartment. The atmosphere was filled with genuine laughter, shared stories, and an unspoken respect that had grown between us. We were no longer just mother, son, and daughter-in-law. We were family, united not by wealth or status, but by understanding and love. The sunlight filtered softly through the curtains, casting a warm glow over the table set with modest dishes, comfort food I had prepared with care. Michael poured wine carefully, his hands steadier than I'd seen in months. Ashley smiled freely, no longer the poised, guarded woman I once knew, but someone more real, more present. We spoke not just about the past, but about hopes for the future, Michael's plans to start his own small consultancy, Ashley's nursing classes, and the foundation I had set up to help retired teachers like me. Between bites and shared memories, I noticed the subtle ways we had healed each other. Michael was more patient, more open. Ashley's sharp edges had softened into empathy, and I, once weighed down by sacrifice and silence, felt lighter, embraced by a sense of belonging I hadn't known in years. We toasted quietly to new beginnings, not just theirs, but mine too. In that moment, I understood that family isn't perfect. It's messy, it's complicated, but it's also a place of forgiveness and growth. The wounds we once carried had started to fade, replaced by something stronger, a bond forged not by wealth or expectation, but by genuine connection. As the evening wore on, I caught myself smiling without restraint, feeling peace settle deeply in my heart. This was the true victory, the reclaiming of dignity, the restoration of love, and the knowledge that no matter what life throws, we can rebuild, renew, and thrive together. As I close this chapter, I want to thank you for being here with me today. Remember, the dignity and strength you're seeking are already inside of you, waiting patiently to be remembered. Until next time, stay strong and remember your worth.